Welcome to The Screen Queen, the show where I'll be talking about your favorite show or your favorite movie. You'll just have to find out what you're about to know. This is your Screen Queen, your host, Samantha Parrish. Hello there and welcome back to the show. This is your lean, mean, movie-talking machine, Samantha Parrish. And welcome back to the third episode of the Christmas series on The Screen Queen. So it's weird to have to think that if it wasn't for a movie in 1983 about a young boy who just wanted a Red Ryder BB gun, we wouldn't have the raunchy charm of South Park. But I guess it's what happens when something is created, that it's going to inspire something else, and it seems to be that A Christmas Story has an impact that went beyond being a Christmas movie. When this movie first came out, people were all over it. They loved the book, they loved the movie, and then it just had this ongoing legacy that just kept going, and people don't seem to be tired of it. A lot of Christmas movies can be very boring, and they get very tired of it, and they don't want to keep watching it, and it loses it. Yet with A Christmas Story, people don't get tired of it. You would think with some of the main elements being so sappy, you'd see it coming, but just like The Sixth Sense, or like Die Hard, or like The Shawshank Redemption, you know what happens, and you want to be able to have that moment happen over and over and over again. It's a movie that you feel like you're watching again for the first time. Yours truly did not grow up with this movie. This was not a part of the Christmas schedule that I had with my family growing up. I don't know why. I can't tell you. It just never really got discovered by me until much later on in life when I realized that I accidentally watched it when I was a kid. More about that later. So I didn't really get to grow up with the charm of A Christmas Story, and honestly, I'm kind of glad I'm late to the game. I don't really think I'm late to anything. I just got to fit in right with the crowd that all love A Christmas Story. Even the people that say they hate Christmas Story find something that they love out of it and don't deny what they love out of it. So no matter who's out there, someone does love A Christmas Story in their own way, which is kind of what you want from a movie, that you might not like everything from it, but if there's something you love from it, then it's doing something right. For the past 2 years, I have enjoyed having A Christmas Story a part of my Christmas collection and watching it every year, and I have never gotten tired of it. I've watched it several times a day, and I love seeing the charm of all the characters, even though they're not really household names, but they still live on in your heart. After everything that has been attempted to recreate this movie, it still goes in vain that it's not A Christmas Story. The sequel didn't uphold. The live version didn't uphold. The new sequel, not so bad from what I hear. But what is it about this movie that truly feels timeless? There's a lot of things that I have found out that really does make sense as to why people keep coming back to this film and knowing why everything worked out so perfectly. So sit back, relax, get your favorite Christmas snack, and we're going to get into A Christmas Story. So I feel like the best way to introduce the first part of this episode is by saying that the main character of A Christmas Story and the director Bob Clark have a lot in common when it comes to their tenacity to get something that they want. Ralphie was after the Red Ryder BB gun, and he was going to who knows what, to whatever lengths to get that. Bob Clark, the same deal. But in this case, he wasn't trying to go to Santa Claus. His Santa Claus was a production that told him that he can't do A Christmas Story until he does a Christmas horror story first. And keep in mind, this was in the 70s. We didn't get A Christmas Story until 1983. So Bob Clark made the deal. He promised the movie production that he would make a Christmas horror story, and he made A Christmas Horror Story. It's a little gem called Black Christmas, and to everyone's expectations, it exceeded everyone's expectations. It became the milestone marker for slasher movies. It really, when you look at A Christmas Story and then you look at Black Christmas, it's going to amaze you that it's made by the same person. Bob Clark really was an amazing director during the time of the 70s and the 80s, and he always delivered amazing movies in different genres. He was very versatile. So after upholding his end of the deal with a very shocked production, that did not know they were going to be getting a new classic slasher movie, they said, all right, you get to do A Christmas Story. You won. Bob Clark made a remarkable film, but the most important thing about this movie is the cast. Everyone is so charming and they're irreplaceable that you can't see anyone else in the role of those characters. They are forever tied to A Christmas Story. But we almost got a different role for the father. Originally, Jack Nicholson was offered the role of the old man, and he passed on it because the man was already busy. He was getting up there, and he was already busy in terms of endearment, so he's just like, I appreciate the offer, but I'm just gonna have to pass. I appreciate everyone enduring that very, very, very terrible Jack Nicholson impression. Appreciate you guys. Anyway, Jack Nicholson did go on to comment about who did take the role of the old man in A Christmas Story, and said, I can't imagine anyone else but Darren McGavin playing the dad. That is such a high level of praise, and I don't think I've ever really heard Jack Nicholson praise anybody. And Darren McGavin, to me, is still not knowledgeable, so knowing, someone like him to get such high praise, it's remarkable, absolutely amazing, that so many people appreciate how well this cast works together. Everything had to be the way it was. People still carry the torch for this film, but they don't really carry the torch for the rest of the movies. And I'm not talking about the newest sequel that we got this year. From what I heard, people really like that and they have no problems with it. And it actually made up for that abysmal sequel and the live version. So that's what we're going to get into right now. Now, I do have to say, I did not see A Christmas Story 2, and I don't think I had to. The writing was on the wall. You didn't have the people for this film. Why keep going with something that didn't need to really keep going? I mean, if it was, give it some more time so it can have an appropriate storyline, because the one they delivered did not match the tone and charm of the original. The coattails were not that hard to follow when they fucked it up. My God, I haven't even seen the thing and I'm pissed about it. I saw some snippets from other various reviewers and it was just abysmal. I'm like, there's nothing here. I'm not going to give my time to something that disrespected the premise. I mean, they did try. I have to keep in mind when it comes to movies that this was the chance they got. They gave it their all. Maybe it wasn't the time for them, but they still went and endured to give us something. I do find it absolutely hysterical, though, that the old man is played by Daniel Stern from Home Alone, that we all know and love and kind of feel sorry for. That's a nice little, Christmas tie-in, knowing that he was already in a Christmas series and that he got to carry on to another one. And Daniel Stern is a great actor. This just was not meant for him, just like the rest of them. A Christmas Story 2 should have just never happened. And then the live action happened, and it's just like, oh no, that's making the sequel look tolerable, because it gave so much more unnecessary things. At least A Christmas Story 2 was bland and stale. This gave us stuff we never asked for. There were certain musical numbers that made no sense. When A Christmas Story Live came up, it was Fox's hat tossed in the ring to figure out, okay, well, let's try A Christmas Story. We had Grease. We did Hairspray. Let's do A Christmas Story. Something that wasn't a musical, and they tried to make it into something it wasn't. And it's so strange. I can now see why people are pissed about it, because now that I love A Christmas Story, I'm joining the rest of the people that don't like something that didn't need to be fixed. Some things just don't need to be musicals. The moments in A Christmas Story impact because it did not need necessary things. It works solely because of the charm and the story. You had time to sit with these characters and go through all their stories. How the hell were you going to sit with them if they were going to be singing? That kind of disrespected their characters. Sounds kind of weird to say it like that, but it didn't really do a service to honor those characters. They didn't need to sing musicals. We just got to know them through the way they talk, the way they act, the way they do everything. It didn't need to be sung about. It hurts to say that because there were some really good actors in the live action. Maya Rudolph played the mom, and she is an amazing comedic woman, an amazing actress. It just was not meant for her to play Mother Parker. Especially singing as Mother Parker, it just didn't really go well. And on top of that, the live action of A Christmas Story just got worse with the narrator. A Christmas Story is one of very few films that can rely upon narration to drive the story, where we can watch a movie and we can kind of pick up the pieces without having it narrated or explained to us, but it works so well knowing that we're getting the narration from an adult Ralphie that's telling us what his childhood was like and how he reflected all those great moments. Matthew Broderick had none of that as the narrator. An actor who does this for a living didn't even give us any single emotion. I mean, look at the narration that Gene Shepard did in this one little snippet that has been used for comparison when he says in A Christmas Story, "Scott Farkus, what an ugly name!" Matthew Broderick's version, "Scott Farkus, what an ugly name." It's like, Matthew, wake up! What's going on? Goodness, it was just abysmal knowing that his career just kept going down and down and down and down and down, knowing that this could have been a really good opportunity for him, and he couldn't do the very thing that he's been doing since the 1980s, which is act. So, I'm going to use The Lost Boys as my example for the point I'm going to make. When you look at The Lost Boys, that's technically a series of movies, because it continued on to something that wanted to keep being elaborated, even though it didn't need it, but still felt like it needed to have a sequel. And the sequels that were made did not uphold the original film, and people still went back to the original. Now look at A Christmas Story. There was a sequel, a live musical, and then another sequel. Basically a sequel that was kind of like a sorry sequel in a way to make up for what happened. A sequel that didn't have to happen, but because those two things were so bad for the reputation that it kind of had to make like a nice apology to the fans for being like, sorry, I don't know why this happened, but this is what you should have gotten. And that's what A Christmas Story Christmas did, was basically retcon A Christmas Story 2 and the live musical, which is kind of nice. So in a way, what A Christmas Story Christmas did was like what the 2018 Halloween did. It was like, I gotta clean up this mess and we gotta get back to where it belonged. So this continues on from A Christmas Story, which is absolutely great to see. Even though I myself, I have not seen A Christmas Story Christmas, but from what I've seen so far, a lot of people are just relieved that they got the story that they didn't think needed to be continued, but if it did, it had to be in the same tone as the original, like through and through. From what I hear, they worked hard to make sure this echoed back to A Christmas Story and had all the references. You went back in time and it didn't feel like it was doing the same thing again. You got to have the character go through his life and see other people and just go on the journey with him to see what Ralphie's like as an adult. That's the way that the sequel should have been in the first place. A Christmas Story is so powerful that we can use our own imagination from what we know about these characters and knowing what their lives are going to be like after Christmas Day. We know what their dynamic is like. We know that they're going to be okay. And the way that adult Ralphie talked about his family, you knew that everything was fine. He didn't have a rotten childhood after that. Everything really opened up to him about what his mom does for him and the way that the dynamic changed with his father that he didn't really particularly get along with and he was kind of scared of, but then that changed. It brought such a unique, realistic look that people see in their own families, and you got to see that recreated in A Christmas Story. And that's what people love about that. So it's nice that with A Christmas Story Christmas, it still echoes the past, that we can still see a wonderful celebration of Christmas with family. And one more little thing I have to say before we move on. I did read that Peter Billingsley, I think I got his name right, narrated the story in the same style as Gene Shepard as an honorable nod. I mean, you can't get any more better than that. That's just fantastic. Icing on the cake. Put a candle on it. Amazing. There is one thing that I appreciate about this movie that I'm not quite sure if anyone else would really see it this way, is that it's aged extremely well for communication, which is kind of rare. We've had to come a long, long, long journey to be able to actually listen to someone about their problems and not jump the gun or go to conclusions and make unnecessary punishments, and actually understand that some people just have a bad day. Some people just have a bad time. And why make someone's day worse? And that's why I want to talk about the meltdown scene in A Christmas Story. That was actually the first scene I ever saw from A Christmas Story, so it was forever embedded in my brain. And out of all days, I saw it on Christmas Day when I was 12. And I remember seeing this scene and how it played out of Ralphie just having a shit day. He just wanted to get an A+ on his paper so that way he could be able to get his Red Ryder BB gun, since that's the whole point of the plot, is his kid has got to get his Red Ryder BB gun. And unfortunately, to a kid, when all plans fail, it feels like the end of the world. And that's something that's such a kid thing to have to be upset about. Very relatable. So when the bully, Scut Farkus, comes up and gives him a hard time, it just set him off. Whether you're a kid or an adult, if something comes out of nowhere and you're already having a bad day, that's it. That's the end. That person is done for. Their actions are riding off of just absolute frustration and anxiety. And when Ralphie runs after Scut Farkus and just starts wailing on him, and it's like, this should be satisfying, but it's not, because Ralphie has had enough. The poor kid is having a bad day. And the wonderful thing about that scene is, every other kid's reaction. Usually you see in these movies with kids that there was, riling up, or they're just, actually that's it, they're just kind of riling up. There's more diversity to it when you see Randy pick up the glasses and know what to do. Despite the fact you hear a lot of ruckus, this movie does kind of have a silent way of understanding things and all the chaos going on. And, of course, it's brilliant with Ralphie's friend's reaction going, Ralphie, your mother, oh God. And when Mother Parker comes up and she's trying to get her son to stop wailing on the bully, and it just scares the mom, Ralphie, stop, what are you doing, Ralphie? And then sees that something's wrong and just sees Ralphie just completely breaks out into tears, and it's absolutely heartbreaking. Even thinking about it's getting me a little misty-eyed, because we all have days like that where we're just I've had enough. This was a bad day. And the thing that's brilliant about that scene is that Mother Parker knew what to do. Reprimanding Ralphie wasn't going to make anything better. She has a lot of faith and trust in her son that this isn't in his character, that he had a good reason for doing so, and that he wouldn't do it again. Getting mad at him is not going to solve anything, because anger never solves problems. Maybe it does in some cases, but when it comes to a child having a bad day and not hearing out that child, it just makes things worse. For a movie in 1983 to have this scene of communication and understanding is absolutely amazing, to see how well it aged today. And that it was one of those very few scenes that we got in a decade of the 80s that was still kind of working on how to address mental health and how to really address communication. That moment did not need anything sappy or over the top, or it didn't even need an answer. It was just a tough slice of life that you have a bad day and anger's not going to solve anything. Mother Parker handled everything the way that it should be, where someone just knows that you're in pain and they're going to take care of you and they're not going to tell you stuff you already know. You just need someone to let you get through this, process the emotions, and know that everything is going to be okay after that, and giving someone the faith that they can handle everything and that there's not going to be a repeat. And the rest of that scene that plays out is just as beautiful. The brother, Randy, is under the kitchen sink, sobbing, and Mother Parker is trying to figure out what he's so sad about, and Randy just says, Daddy's gonna kill Ralphie, as if that little kid logic of, you get in trouble, you had a nice life. 11 was a pipe dream, oh well, I put my bets too high. And the way that Mother Parker handled Randy was just as beautiful, and it was nice to actually see this motherly moment with Mother Parker, with how she does handle the emotions of her sons. I mean, you really got all of the emotions out in every single one of the family members, that you see what they're like and how layered they are. And she knows that Randy's going to have to handle this on his own, and that he just wants to stay under the sink and just gets him a glass of milk and says, you can be there until dinner. Not tell him to get out from under the sink or nothing. She let her boys cope in the way that they had to cope, and it's absolutely beautiful. In a movie that is so sappy that it could out-sap syrup, it was nice that it didn't really need a sugar-coated moment. It let a moment just be a moment, to breathe with these characters and process the emotions with them. It's one of the main things I can see why people really loved Mother Parker in this movie. Was just like the way that some people wish their mother was like, or the way that their mother took care of them when they were younger, and knowing like how they were able to handle a situation for them. Made me think about my mom and the way that she was able to kind of help me in the times that I got frustrated, and that she was still on my side and helped me through the various things that I was frustrated about, and gave me the faith that I would be able to go on through life, but I just had to get the emotions out. That scene still lived in my head. And then finally finding out that it was from A Christmas Story, it was just like, it was like the moment that John McClane finally got to see Sergeant Al Powell. I'm just like, oh, it was you the entire time. I've been waiting to see you. It was like that magical moment. Probably even more magical. It's emotional scenes like that that can really elevate the film. Sometimes it can be a make or break, where it's not really going to feel vulnerable or solid enough to stay with the film, that you're getting these layers to the story. Sometimes there's like an attempt for an emotional moment that almost felt cliched, but in A Christmas Story, even at the age that it's at where it could be called a cliche, it's not, because it's just a sense of realism. Everything about that scene feels real for what we went through as a kid, or what we wanted to have happen as a kid, to be understood and to know that our feelings are valid and our emotions are valid. This movie has very hokey moments, but they're homey, warm, comfortable, forgiving, flawed. It's one of those Christmas movies that has a resolve that does not feel like it's just trying to go for the Christmas angle of, oh, all is well during Christmas and you have everybody. This actually truly does feel like it encapsulates the message of Christmas, that everything has a resolve on its own. The resolve won't match everyone else's resolve, but something always works out. Near the end of the movie, everyone's been anticipating for Christmas dinner. We finally got the Red Ryder BB gun. Let's wrap everything up with a nice meal. And that didn't happen. And they end up having to go someplace else that's open for Christmas. And they found the new tradition of Christmas duck instead of Christmas turkey. But the beautiful thing about those final moments of the film, is the way the old man responds. And it's actually kind of interesting. Like I mentioned earlier about the silent empathy that you kind of see between the brothers, Randy and Ralphie, where, yeah, they badger at each other, but deep down they do love each other and wouldn't want anything bad to happen to each other. Same thing with the old man. Getting mad at the Bumpus's dog is not going to bring Christmas dinner back. It's not going to magically make the turkey come back to the table and turn back time. What's done is done. And all he does is say, get dressed, we're going out. And then they have a new tradition, and it's beautiful. That something else got to be a part of their Christmas traditions, that not everything has to be the same, and that's what's kind of lovely. Whenever you do see like a stupid antic happen and Christmas dinner is quote-unquote ruined, and people give up and they don't want to go on, but it's like, that was such a quick resolve. He said, get your clothes on and we're going out. It didn't need to have like this big meltdown or talk about it. It's just like, what's done is done, and we're going to have a nice Christmas dinner and then we'll come back home. It's like a nice little like handling the situation and making the most of it. It's like those silent moments of being able to handle critical situations and know that it doesn't have to be resolved with anger or getting mad at stuff, which is kind of nice for a movie like this where tensions can really rise during the holidays. And most Christmas movies do dive into a lot of anger and suppressed stuff, and then you don't really feel like you got the resolve or feel the characters got resolved. This is nice in a movie where you do see everything generally got resolved in its own beautiful way that catered to the character. They got what they wanted. They got to be heard. One last scene that I'll talk about that's absolutely beautiful is kind of the way the old man changed with Ralphie. The whole thing has been Ralphie's kind of terrified of his father. And to have it wrap up with Ralphie clearly upset about the gift of the iconic pink bunny onesie, and the way the old man just is like, oh my god, he looks like a demented Easter bunny, and sees the look of absolute misery on his own child's face and just, you want to take it off? Tell the kid to take it off. It's such a nice way of not having to like stretch out a moment and be like, oh no dear, come on, it's cute. And it's like, no, this kid is miserable. Again, the acknowledgement of communication in this film is absolutely magical for how it's such a small sentence that can make the biggest impact to address someone's feelings and emotions and not feel like you're dismissing what someone else is feeling. I didn't think I'd get all that of A Christmas Story, but shit, here we are, and I think I can see a little bit more as to why people really love A Christmas Story, is that genuine feeling of being understood. And that's what everyone wants during the holidays. You want to forget about your problems. You want to be there with your family. You want to have all this time with them. And look back at those memories and remember all those great Christmases, which is beautiful having to hear all the narration from Ralphie about how much he enjoyed Christmas with his family. Getting to understand them a little bit more. I mean, yeah, he still went gung-ho about how he got his Red Ryder BB gun. But still, it was nice that it was a kid that learned a lot of lessons, and it felt like he truly learned them. It wasn't just learning them for the sake of the plot. Like, you really felt like you learned with him. And that's very beautiful. Even though Bob Clark worked hard to get this film going, you know, it took a horror movie to get this film, and then having the brilliant cast, but really, I think the heart and the soul truly is Jean Shepherd. Without him writing the book, and then it becoming a movie, and then him throwing his hat in the ring to become an actor as the adult Ralphie, to really bring it home with how this environment works in the story and getting to really be immersed in this time in the 1940s. It wasn't just a time in the 1940s. We got to see Jean Shepherd's childhood. A lot of A Christmas Story comes from his own stories as a kid. All the bullies he faced, the friends he hung out with, the times that he felt misunderstood, and the ways that he kind of had to grow up a little bit more at those times during Christmas. I myself have not read A Christmas Story, but knowing that a lot of his childhood went into Ralphie's story is actually quite amazing. That we got to see a lot of Jean Shepherd in the movie, and actually having him in the movie elevates it so much more. And it probably makes sense as to why he's so magical and energetic and enthusiastic, because he's talking about things that actually happened, despite it kind of tying into the fictional story he created. It's absolutely beautiful. And even though A Christmas Story has had a lot of losses with the passing of Darren McGavin, the unfortunate accident that happened to Bob Clark and his son, and Jean Shepherd's passing as well, it is lovely to see that this film does live on the legacies of those that are associated with The Christmas Story. That they made such an impact, that their legacy lives on in A Christmas Story. Because it's a tale that people find comfort with, and also laugh at, and have a big smile on their face from beginning to end. And that's the way it should be. To forget about things for a little while, or remember those good times, and know that it wasn't as bad as we thought it was going to be. A Christmas Story gave us a journey back to Jean Shepherd's childhood, but it also gave us a journey back to our own childhood. It gave us these moments that truly live on forever, things that we can relate to, or things that we miss, or things that we still celebrate. And that's what really makes A Christmas Story so timeless, is knowing that it gives us the time back to ourselves and helps us remember when times weren't so bad, and knowing that things got okay, and cherishing the family that you have. And that no matter what happens, you do have a resolve in the end. No matter how it turns out to be, everything works out. And it's kind of rare to have that comforting message from a movie, and A Christmas Story just makes that absolutely beautiful. Okie dokie, that officially wraps up the episode about A Christmas Story. This was, I'm not gonna lie, this was kind of a difficult episode because this is such a new movie to me. I say new as this thing came out in 1983, but I kind of got to experience what I didn't really have as a child with this movie, and seeing this from an adult perspective while also trying to see how it would be like from a child perspective of the one scene I saw at 12 years old it was a hell of a thing having to see this movie in two different perspectives, and it really does make me appreciate A Christmas Story more than the last time I watched it. It's one of those films that I'm really going to enjoy every Christmas, and I'm glad that this new movie got to make its way onto the Screen Queen, and it's absolutely beautiful. So thank you so much for listening to the episode. Now is the time that we are going to find out what the final Christmas episode is going to be on the Screen Queen. This is going to be a little intense because we still got some suggestions in here, so it's going to be reserved for next Christmas, I guess. So let me get this mixed up real good. I'm going to laugh my ass off if I could Die Hard. I've mentioned that movie 3 times in all of the episodes. Here we go. Okay, it's there. Okay. I got one. Yep. Nope. Wait, that's 2. Yep, I got one. Oh my frickin'! Y'all gotta laugh. I kind of predicted myself. The next episode on the Screen Queen is going to be Die Hard 2. Oh my god, I can't believe I did this to myself. Jeez, I mean, I asked for it. I really did, but I didn't expect it was going to be the sequel. Oh my god. That was one hell of a plot twist. Oh my god, it's like you kind of got what you wanted, but the total opposite. Oh my god. Oh my god. I knew it. Okay. Well, now we know what the next episode's gonna be. Oh my god, yippee-ki-yay, mother trucker! Alrighty. Well, thank you so much for listening. In between the show, if you'd like to catch up with me, find me on Instagram at Queen of the Screen, and you can also find me on TikTok for behind-the-scenes featurettes of the Screen Queen recordings on my TikTok at The Mystical Space Witch. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope that everyone is having a very easygoing holiday as we're gearing up for Christmas, and here we go with the final Christmas present, gonna be delivered right on Christmas Day. Alrighty. Well, you all take care. Stay safe, stay warm, stay amazing, and I'll be back with another episode. This is your host, signing off. Bye-bye!